There are few things in life more certain than post-nut clarity, one of which is Dead by Daylight is a terribly designed game. Whoa, 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 put the guns down, okay guys? It's okay to be wrong sometimes, let's relax and talk for a little. It's clear that despite these limitations, the game continues to be pretty successful, both on Steam where it continues to reach peaks, but also on YouTube and Twitch, where a lot of content gets made and watched on the game. All this to say, how come? What makes a game that has a laundry list of issues continue to be such a success story when most other titles made by the same company have not been nearly as successful? Hopefully in this video we can come up with a few ideas. For starters, we will not be discussing the balance at length in this video. For one, there's a really well-made video from a different content creator about a year ago that is incredibly detailed and still holds very true, analyzing the ping-ponging that has been the balance over time in this game. So I think me covering it would just turn out in a much worse video. So instead, I'll link this one in the description for you to check out later. Warning, it's on the longer side. Let's first address the elephant in the room. What do I mean when I say it's a terribly designed game? Well, besides being made in a genre that is incredibly hard to get right, the game took forever to even include basic shakeup players had asked for years to its base gameplay formula, which when distilled to its smallest parts boils down to the following: running around in circles efficiently around structures, this applies to both sides, and having either to hold mouse 1 or press a combination of the two if you're on the killer side. As more DLC is added to the game, while conceptually and graphically we've gotten some marvelous creations, sometimes from the halls of horror, when a popular franchise gets added into the game. The truth is, most killer powers, barring a few exceptions, are rehashes or combinations of one another, rather than fresh new ideas. Perks, something that could substantially change the way the game is played, usually range from game-breaking to completely underwhelming. And let us not forget that the game is frequently breaking down with tons of bugs, and over time has been monetized to hell and back. So why do people keep coming back? Let's get the obvious one and most repeated one out of the way, so you know I considered it. Yes, DVD is in a very particular condition now in which it has access to many iconic IPs from the horror genre, all packed into one game, renewing its appeal for different audiences that might be excited to see their favorite character come into the game. But this answer falls short, as many original chapters have had higher peaks than some licensed chapters. So while it is something to consider, it's not always the case. So what else does the game have going for it? If we take away the high end of gameplay for the people who sweat out the game or run their own tournaments, and we focus on beginner to middle level play, the core gameplay loop is relatively basic. Sure, a lot of people will argue by now there's a lot to learn in terms of roster of killers and perks that you need to counter, and while that's not necessarily false, the reality is, as a beginner player, you could know none of that and be holding M1 on a generator while your friend runs a less experienced killer for several generators. And if you're on the killer side, you could easily just pick one killer and focus down on learning that particular character really well, making it your main, something many people do. I think it's important to consider in this case, this game is a lot more accessible than people make it out to be, especially when pitted out against other games that have tried more complex ideas in the space and failed. A simple core concept with some knowledge complexity added on top is what makes this game approachable. Not to mention, it is crossplay, so you can play with people on console. But what about the psychology behind the game? Often playing around the DVD evokes really strong emotions for people, with occasional joys, yet with a lot of frustration mixed in as well. It's my belief that this experience of highs and lows is what maintains players in an addiction loop of wanting to go on, to improve, to have one last game. It's also important to look at how being an asymmetrical game affects players, as while there are people who play both sides, there's also a lot of people who pick a side, and that detail in and of itself is what's important. Now it's not just a game, but a psychological fight of us versus them, survival versus killer, player pitted against player, thinking their side is better or deserves more than the other. This fuels a lot of negative emotions for sure, but I think it's also a main driver for people continuing to play the game. And while there are a lot of wholesome creators in the space, it would be a lie to say I haven't come across a lot of people playing and streaming the game and having seemingly the worst day of their life. That brings us to content creators. Since its inception, the game has been carried through its highs and lows by a constant stream of coverage across many content platforms. I really think this has kept the game in relevance over the years, as the interest to watch the game has even maintained through moments where the player numbers have dropped. I don't think the game would be anywhere near where it is now if it wasn't for the very loyal creators in the space. Finally, I think it's important to also note that pretty much every other game that has tried a hand at its variation on the genre has failed. In some small cases, there have been genuinely good attempts at making a good game, but shortcomings or issues have gotten in the way and the games have died. In most cases, the games were undercooked ideas with little follow-through that failed to keep players engaged. But most of all, right or wrong, the rabid adherence of the fan base of Dead by Daylight has also made it very difficult for even the promising games not to be negatively impacted by players expecting to get more of the same gameplay, but with some improvements or changes, and leaving in droves when that wasn't the case. That brings us to today. With so many DLCs under its belt, Dead by Daylight has gone beyond horror and has even brought in some fringe cases like anime and the like. It's not showing any sign of stopping, and no matter how much people may complain about the game, they keep playing it for thousands and thousands of hours. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to hold M1 on that like and subscribe button. Don't worry, there won't be any weird skill checks or anything like that. And make sure to check us out on stream. We multi-stream across multiple platforms, so be happy to see you there.